We start with a flashback of Simon with Betty in a forest, with him telling her to be careful, but she jumps into the water without any fear. He takes off his slippers and falls into the water, but he gets up and makes an excuse, and the two start to laugh. Now going to the present, with the group walking in a desert looking for an icy kingdom, with Cake angry with Fionna, they stop to rest. And the control is broken so they can make one more jump. Cake blames to Fionna since there was little left for her to get the crown, but Fionna says she saved her. Cake goes out for a walk. Let's now go to a place in the middle of existence, with some things outside the natural context we know, with the impatient scarab, and we met the orb. Now we see Simon and Fionna talking, with him saying about her doing the right thing, and talking about when he saved Marceline and in the end he hurt her, and tries to cheer her up. Comments about Betty before she was a goddess, an incredible person he loved. Cake finds the treehouse from that universe. Fionna understands why he wanted to see Betty again so much. Fionna asks him to tell the story of how they met, so he talks about meeting her in the library when they were going to get the same book, and we see their past. When he was in class, we see him talking about magical goals that we have already seen in Adventure Time, only Betty starts to clap. Another teacher disbelieves in these things. The students start to laugh at him, except Betty. He talks about looking for a book called the Enchiridion, and they throw things at him. Betty after class goes to talk to Dr. Petricovi and introduces herself and asks if he can sign her book. He is surprised that she has read his work. He goes to see her book and says he wishes he had met her sooner. She talks about her having to travel here for a week 6 months to study petroglyphs. But it would be cool to find something with him, and she gets excited and says she's going with him. Then we hear a scream from Cake. They run to that house, and Cake says that there is something hidden in the house, and that we see Bimo leaving wearing an owl mask, and he apologizes for scaring them. Simon recognizes him. He asks where everyone is. He says around except for the football that disappeared. He asks if there is a magical crown there. He says yes, that the Ice King lives in the Ice Kingdom. They look and see nothing. Bimo, he thinks it's strange. And we return to the scarab with the orb saying that he's dropping the ball a lot. He says he found something and that Prismo created a universe and hid it. The orb doesn't believe it. Scarab says he's his boss, but the boss himself. He tries to call someone, but the Obro attacks him. Now, Bimo is taking them, and comments about Jake having said something, and Cake laughs, and he introduces his friend Jerry's house. Talks about him being cool and funny. Fionna tries to get closer to Cake, but she turns away and goes to ask Bimo about his dog version, and Fionna asks to listen to the rest of Simon's story. He continues, and we see Simon and Betty in nature talking, and Simon hears a snake and begins looking and saying that there are a lot of snakes there. She says that it's going to get dark and that she knows how to do some things that her mother taught her. She starts jumping between the rocks without fear, and snakes coming out. So I did that. They arrived at the kingdom, which was all destroyed. They see several things from the Ice King. Bimo takes a tape and puts it on himself, and we see the Ice King recording himself and singing. They watch things, and we see a quick skeleton. Simon says that the only hope is the control. Bimo asks to see the control, all agitated. He says he knows how to hook up with Princess Bubblegum, his friend. Simon gets excited, and Cake takes him on his back. As he walks, he goes back to tell the story, and we see the two of them in the car and a crowd. And with the book in her hands, Betty says that she won't be able to tell him that it's his moment. He responds by saying that he wouldn't be able to do it without her help, and praises her. They say goodbye, and she leaves. Fiona finds the sadness story arriving at the castle. Everything was broken and devastated with no life. Bimo hides and starts pretending to be the jelly bean, wearing his crown, saying that one day everyone was a skeleton and Jerry arrived, and didn't finish saying it and took the control, and says it's beyond her ability. Kate gets angry, and Fiona leaves crying, and Simon goes to talk to her and talks about his past again, about after what happened. He didn't stop, but thinking about Betty. Simon goes to the library and sees the book that she had taken back, and it had a letter that said that the book is terrible, about the actor and his ass, but in reality she said that she admired his research for years, but Expedition started to admire him too, about him being kind, charming and fun, and we see her packing her things for I got out of getting married, and sees a photo she had of him, and says that she felt they had something special. She wanted to say goodbye and travel the world with him, and we see her saying goodbye to her mother while Simon runs to get to his house. He then arrives, and her mother says that she has already gone to catch the bus. He sees her. She had a phone on. He says that I read the letter, that she should be careful with what she writes and expresses. She says that it hurts, a strange moment for her, for they forget about it, and her bus arrives, and she says goodbye to him, but he holds her arm, and says that the ticket was not stupid but incredible, and he wants her, and gives her a hug, and they are both happy. Simon asks to stop calling him Petrikov. Fiona was enchanted by Simon's story and Bimo too. He thinks about using his robot heart to fix the control, and pretends to be her answering himself, and opens his lid. He clicks the beauty control, and the heart starts to heat up and have a strong light, and it explodes, and all its parts are burned, leaving nothing left. Cake puts his hand on what was left, but it turns into a normal clock. They hold a funeral for him, and they thank him for what he did. Cake says they should tell his friend what happened. On the way behind Jerry, the two of them sing a song. Simon talks about a song that was his and Betty's, and we see the two together exchanging looks with fireflies around them. And we see her lying on his arm, and the song talks about having everything you need in a person and loving and being obvious to everyone. They arrive at Jerry's house, and Simon and see that it's Lighty inside of a completely finished body standing still, and they tell them to run because he is dangerous, but he uses his power and brings them closer. The scarab is now with the orb and tells the whole story of what the prism did, and asks to finish his work, and someone calls them Lighty, who says if it were before would have killed him several times, and frees them from the trance, and it seems like he slept, and Fiona and Cake are scared to death. Simon says that they are not in danger, that he is depressed, and says that he must have managed to kill all life in this universe, and that without life they have no way of surviving there. Fiona opens her bag and takes out the crown and says that she got it from the Ice King's house, and that she doesn't want it, that Simon turns into a sad guy, making Cake angry, and Simon says that everyone dies, and she says that everyone will die one day being who they are, and Cake says that she is herself, and Simon says that she will stay okay. He starts the ritual again with Betty's photo, using the Lighty as a connection, opening the portal, and they go to their universe, and the scarab appears behind him, and Simon takes the crown but remembers Betty, thus opening it a portal on the floor, and Lighty opens his eye which turns red, and we end the episode.